You ever notice that one person who never asks for help, but somehow always shows up when you need it? They don't overshare, they don't complain much, they handle things quietly, efficiently. And if you ask how they're doing, you'll probably get fine, even if their world is on fire. If you're thinking of someone right now, or feeling a little called out, yeah, this might be you. Because there's a hidden psychology behind Gen X, a generation that didn't just grow up fast, but grew up unnoticed, raised to be independent, adaptable, and emotionally low maintenance, praised not for being expressive, but for not being a problem. And today, we're unpacking what that does to a human mind. Not the stereotypes, not the memes, the quiet patterns, the invisible rules, and the types of Gen X adults that emerged from being raised, well, to be invisible. Let's start with the self-sufficient type. Picture this. A kid comes home from school. No parents around yet. There's a note on the fridge. Heat up leftovers, do homework, don't answer the door, don't cause trouble. That kid learned early that needs are inconvenient, so they stopped announcing them. Fast forward to adulthood, and this person is wildly capable. They can fix things, figure things out, and survive almost anything. On the outside, they look unshakable, but psychologically, their independence isn't just a trait, it's armor. They don't ask for help because deep down, help was never guaranteed. So they built a nervous system that says, handle it yourself, always. If this is you, you might feel uncomfortable relying on others. You might secretly resent people who seem needy, not because you lack empathy, but because you were never allowed to need. You learned early, being low maintenance equals being safe. Then there's the emotionally contained type. This one's subtle. They feel deeply, but you wouldn't know it by looking at them. They grew up in an era where emotions weren't something you explored, they were something you managed. You didn't talk about feelings, you got over them. You didn't process stress, you pushed through. So now, as an adult, feelings feel private, almost intrusive. They might struggle to name what they're feeling at all. Ask them how they're doing, and you'll get an update on tasks, not emotions. And when someone offers care, they may feel awkward, even irritated, not because they don't want connection, but because they never learned how to receive it. Psychologically, this is emotional self-regulation taken to an extreme. Feelings are allowed, but only internally, quietly, preferably alone. If this resonates, you might think you're bad at feelings. You're not. You're just fluent in emotional restraint. Then there's the hyper-adaptable type. This Gen X profile learned to read the room fast. Different rules at school, different moods at home, different expectations everywhere. So they became flexible, observant, adjustable. They can blend into almost any environment. They're good at compromise. They don't need things to go their way. But here's the twist.
When you adapt too much, you can lose track of what you actually want. This type often struggles with identity questions later in life. Not dramatically, but quietly. A low-level sense of, I've done everything I was supposed to, so why do I feel slightly empty? Psychologically, this comes from prioritizing stability over self-expression. When fitting in feels safer than standing out, authenticity becomes negotiable. If this is you, you might be great at supporting others, but vague when asked, what do you want? That's not a failure. That's a survival skill that outlived its original purpose. Then there's the skeptical realist. This one saw enough early on to stop believing in easy answers. They grew up with shifting institutions, economic uncertainty, latchkey afternoons, and the sense that authority figures didn't always have it together. So they became practical, grounded, a little cynical, okay, maybe more than a little. They don't trust hype. They don't fall for motivational slogans. They prefer results over promises. Psychologically, this is a defense against disappointment. Hope feels risky. Optimism feels naive. So they keep expectations low. Not because they're pessimistic, but because they learned that stability is fragile. If you're this type, you might struggle with vulnerability. You might roll your eyes at healing talk, while secretly wishing someone had offered it earlier. You don't need grand gestures. You just want honesty. And finally, there's the quiet connector. This Gen X type doesn't need constant communication, but when they show up, it matters. They're loyal, deeply, not loud about it, but solid. They may not text every day. They may disappear for weeks. But if something truly matters, they're there. This comes from growing up without constant emotional reassurance. Relationships weren't built on constant checking in. They were built on consistency over time. Psychologically, this creates a different attachment style, less expressive, more dependable. If this is you, you might feel misunderstood in today's hyper-communicative world, like your way of caring doesn't translate. It does. It's just quieter. Here's the thing about Gen X. They weren't ignored because no one cared. They were overlooked because the world was busy, and they learned not to interrupt. They became adults who don't demand attention, who don't assume support, who often carry more than they show. And the hidden psychology isn't that they're emotionally distant, it's that they were emotionally self-reliant before their brains were fully formed. So if you see yourself in any of these patterns, there's nothing broken about you, but there is something worth noticing, because invisibility, once useful, doesn't have to be permanent. You're allowed to take up space now. You're allowed to need. You're allowed to be seen without earning it through usefulness. So which of these felt uncomfortably familiar, and how has being fine shaped the way you move through the world today? If this landed for you, let it linger. And if you want more deep dives into the quiet patterns that shape us, you know where to find this channel. You don't have to stay invisible here.